It's the 23rd of June and I'm Tom Glasson. Welcome to The Roast. Now, with Labor releasing its 25-page review of its election defeat, we have exclusive access to the Coalition's review of its election victory. It's just one line written on the back of a napkin that says, promised heaps of stuff we couldn't possibly deliver, then pretended we didn't promise that stuff. Just as well they didn't run with their other election platform, sporadic patches of barbecue sauce and a hot waiter's phone number. You thought this napkin was exciting? I also got a list of the Coalition's policies. Tonight, Labor's election review released and Julie Bishop receives a threat from North Korea. Didn't you ever hear North Korea? Sticks and stones may break my bones, but only if you can successfully launch them over the ocean. First though, Mark Humphries with the headlines. One ply? Honestly, Liberal Party, I know we're in a budget emergency, but this would chafe like crazy.
It's the final week in Parliament for outgoing senators, meaning they'll now have to find a new maroon-coloured room to argue in. Many of them aren't leaving quietly, with Liberal Senator Sue Boyce labelling Prime Minister Tony Abbott a sexist. That's a big accusation, Sue. Sure, Tony Abbott only has one woman in his cabinet and is the first man to appoint himself Minister for Women since the 70s. But on the other hand, just last year he showed how highly he thinks of his female MPs by complimenting one on her sex appeal. So, yeah. Anyway, others retiring from the Senate include Labor Senator Mark Bishop, meaning that, like a chess player, we're going to have to settle for just two bishops. And National Senator Ron Boswell, who seems to already be struggling with retirement.
Senator Boswell said he was in denial about leaving, a sentiment mirrored by his wife, who was in his Parliament House office reading a booklet on life after Parliament.
Ah, Life After Parliament, a good read. Don't skip chapter 10, which is about how to occasionally appear on the drum. Boswell, of course, had a colourful career before entering Parliament over 30 years ago.
Senator Boswell had been a travelling salesman, selling paintbrushes, garbage bins and sanitary pans, among other items.
And if you think that's an insufficient preparation for federal parliament, compared to some of the new senators we have coming in, selling paintbrushes is a doctorate from Harvard. John Hewson, the former Liberal leader who still has night terrors about the cost of birthday cakes, has urged the government not to scrap the carbon tax, asking for further deliberation on the issue.
This is one of the most important parliamentary debates and parliamentary processes since Federation.
Don't adjust your sets. That was Dr. John Hewson outside Parliament with a dinosaur. Remember when our politicians didn't have dinosaurs? Hard to believe there was such a time. It's all part of the Climate Institute's Stop the Dinosaurs campaign, which depicts climate change deniers as dinosaurs and whose website has this message for visitors.
Help us stop the dinosaurs before it's too late, because if the dinosaurs win, we all lose.
Flying in the face of the campaign message from the Natural Confectionery Company.
Don't chop the dinosaur, Daddy!
More than 700 people have swum naked in a Tasmanian river to mark the winter solstice. At least that's what they told police. The swim was part of an arts and music festival called Dark Mofo. Mofo, of course, being slang for morpho. The nude swim was attended by dozens of onlookers, or perverts. Participants in the swim wore red caps so as to spot who was there for the event and who just had their junk out at the beach. The swim, which is the closing event of the festival, is understood to have been the brainchild of local man Dennis. Meanwhile, in Antarctica, researchers have also celebrated the winter solstice by jumping into freezing waters. They created a small pool by soaring into the ice. It's a pool installation I'm calling the worst ever episode of Better Homes and Gardens. For The Roast, I'm Mark Humphries.
Why is Joanna Griggs always getting them to build wood fire ovens on Better Homes and Gardens? No one cooks with wood anymore. We've got gas, Griggs. We've got gas! Next up tonight, the hotly unanticipated internal review of Labor's 2013 election campaign has arrived, and we finally have answers as to what caused the defeat. My guess? They fought a land war in Russia.
The single biggest reason voters turned away from the party was the leadership drama.
Of course. My other guess was that Labor started doing a long monologue about how they were going to beat Tony Abbott, only for that speech to give Abbott enough time to come up with a plan, win the election, and waste government money on a bunch of stupid gadgets. The review was authored by former Queensland ALP Secretary Milton Dick, seen here hoping the knife comes out clean, and Victorian Labor MP Jane Garrett, who is desperately hoping no one notices she just tagged that wall. The review calls the 2013 election campaign one of the most disappointing. But the review wasn't just the opinion of a guy who loves cake and a vandal.
The review received 550 submissions from MPs and ALP members, most of which had a remarkably similar structure.
So while they could not agree on a leader, at least they could all agree on a writing structure. But will the review actually help Labor in the next election? The Roast's resident reviewer Jazz Twemlow finds out.
A review of Labour's Review with your host, Jazz Twemlow.
Good evening and welcome to the review of Labour's Review. This review is the pointless story none of us have been asking for. Do they really not know how they lost? They were there. It's a work where the ending is as predictable as my debut novel, How I Drunkenly Crashed That Plane I Was Unqualified to Fly. The report is a remake of a story we've heard before. Most submissions to the review began by despairing at the Rudd-Gillard government's leadership woes, which is the same thing the nation began despairing at last year before voting them out. So well done, Labour. Like a parrot with learning difficulties, you're finally repeating back to us what we said to you 9 months ago. It's also a terribly timed release. Labour is ahead in the polls and they celebrate by reminding us what they were shit at last year. While you're at it, when you're ahead in a marathon, why not stop to look at photographs of that time you broke your own legs? That's why I'm giving this report 2 knives out of a politician's back. Awful. For The Roast, I'm Jazz Twemlow.
Thank you, Jazz. I can't wait to hear your coverage of Labour's current success in the polls. We do it best when we do nothing at all. But Labour's internal review makes one crucial mistake. Simply being aware that you've done something wrong in the past doesn't mean you won't do it again.
My dear Warden, I now realise that stabbing the spines of my closest friends and family members was an undesirable outcome for all involved.
Well, we believe you've learnt your lesson. So, you're free to go, backstabber. Just need to return your items. Ah, yes, your knife.
Thank you, my dear Warden.
I'll stab your back! Ah! And a quick one for you! Ah! But backstabber, you said you'd learnt the error of your ways.
My dear Warden, it's in my nature.
And like Labour's review, Backstabber's tell-all autobiography tells us nothing. It's just a 25-page description of whose backs he stabbed and why he felt that, at the time, stabbing those backs was the only way to win a national election, without any details on what he plans to do now that there are no more backs to stab, or how he's going to defeat his nemesis, Boatstopper. We'll be right back.
Have you ever reviewed your own performance only to conclude the problem is you're too focused on yourself? Were you surprised when you told yourself to stop focusing on yourself? Did you ignore yourself so you could continue thinking too much about yourself? We'd love to hear about you at The Roast TV or hashtag #me.
Finally tonight, North Korea, the country that proves communism works as long as you don't mind being really poor and hungry, has threatened to punish Julie Bishop over comments she made about Kim Jong-un. Speaking to American journalists, Ms. Bishop questioned the country's leadership.
Kim Jong-un can hardly claim the legitimacy as a leader when his regime continues to defy international expectations.
Can hardly claim legitimacy? Do the words Supreme Leader mean nothing to you, Julie? I suppose you don't think Supreme Pizza should be running countries either. Well, tell that to the Prime Minister of Italy. And following our Foreign Minister's comments, North Korea came out swinging.
We will never pardon but resolutely punish anyone who dares slander the dignity of its supreme leadership.
Punish? Well, sounds like there's a body of water that has a date with a missile. So now Julie Bishop will be in terrible danger unless she can somehow, some way, avoid ever travelling to North Korea. Still, in the interest of avoiding bias, we will now cross to North Korea's roast for their right of reply.
To news from lesser nations now, and Australia's foreign minister made reckless invectives and slandering triumphant nation of Korea. The comments were made by Julie Bishop, seen here conceding the inherent inferiority of her country. She was probably jealous that she's never marched next to a missile with 40,000 friends. You will die soon, stooge of the United States. Up next, sport, where Supreme Leader Kim Jong-un has won the World Cup with a hole-in-one. We'll be right back.
Have you ever heard anyone slander the dignity of our Supreme Leader? Who was it and where did they live? We command you to tell us. At DPRKTV or hashtag Twitter is not allowed.
Oh, North Korean roast has a studio audience? That's so much better than the ABC2 Gulag.
Tom, I'd like to take this opportunity to have a little chat with my Supreme Leader, Kim Jong-un.
I don't think he's watching.
Listen, Your Honour, you're not doing North Korea any favours by making these empty threats. You're the boy who cried missile. You say you're going to punish Bishop, but we all know you won't, and that's why no one is taking you seriously. Real leaders murder people. Don't be one of those leaders who breaks their promises. We hate those guys here. I mean, do you even want to be re-elected?
He wasn't elected.
Can we get that system here?
Nick, I don't think we should be inciting violence here.
Look, Your Holiness, I'm not saying you should nuke Julie Bishop just to prove a point, but I'm also not saying that, because when it gets to the point where you've got chumps like this guy making fun of you, you're doing something wrong. It's time we became scared of you. Now, you can start small, maybe with this jump. Nuke Tom.
What?
And listen, Khaleesi, don't worry about your weapon's inability to fly, because I've purchased this postage-paid, uranium-enriched envelope so you can send your nukes care of Mr. Chump Glasson, Apartment 5.
Nick, I'm right here.
Because people have been laughing at North Korea for too long, and you know what stops people laughing?
Australia's Funniest Home Videos?
The atomic apocalypse. The ball's in your court, my liege. Stop these people laughing.
All right, good night. We should probably get in the roast bunker now.
Nah, he'll never do it. But he should. He should do it, do it, do it.